All right, hello and welcome to the Max Revenue Show. I am your host, Trey Shields, along with the Zen Master of Commercial Insurance, Micah Salas. And today we have a special episode. We're going to do I guess you would call it a quasi coaching call. We did one a few months back, and we've had lots of requests to bring them back and to bring on other producers who are in the trenches and both learn from them, as well as help them where we can. So today we have. Do we want to say your name? I guess it's on the screen, so we don't. We got
Yeah.
Peter
Too late now.
from San Diego. Super nice guy. Have chatted with him a bunch of times inside HQ. Um, and today we're just going to see how we can help him or what we can get from him. So, Peter, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here, guys.
To start off with, do you want to give us kind of your 30-second origin story of how you ended up in this crazy world of insurance producing?
Yeah, so I go back into sales like back in right when I graduated high school. Started working at a car dealership, BMWs, and so worked my way up from washing cars, and cleaning the floors to eventually becoming a desk manager and running the store sales team. COVID hit, and I had kids around the same time, so a lot of things changed, and ended up looking for something to do different, to be around family. Love the car business, absolutely think it's just a lot of fun, but really priorities change, right? So decided to move over to insurance. A friend of mine was doing personal lines only, and I kind of learned from him and kind of got to see under the hood of like how it works, and helped him get a CRM system put in place and a website and all this stuff too, and kind of automated a lot of things. So I figured, hey, this is something I could do, and ultimately had a conversation with my now agency owner that I work for at Falcon West Insurance here in San Diego, and he was interested in kind of what I was doing with my friend, and I decided to go work for him just because I don't like working with friends. I like to keep the friendship separate from work, right? And ultimately ended up where I'm at now. So really enjoying it. I'm 10 months into this, and I've learned a lot. I can tell you that.
Super cool. All right, so you obviously, because of your background, have a little bit, well, not a little bit, a way different entry point and experience level than a lot of new producers that we talk to. They either coming in fresh out of college or coming in out of an unrelated industry, not a whole lot of sales chops. So right off the bat, what were the similarities and differences from the car business? I guess, like, what is similar to it, and then what's like, whoa, this is different?
Sure. It's similar. I mean, it's similar in that the customer is always like the priority, right? But I think what the customer is looking for is different. Like in automotive, right? Like people come in, and especially with Highline, when you're looking at Porsche, Mercedes, BMW, right? They're aspiring to drive something that is fun to drive. And so they're looking for something different. And so obviously customer service is critical there, right? Because you want to have them, they need to have that premium experience. With insurance, it's different because like everyone has an insurance broker, right? Like especially in commercial, right? They're working with somebody already. So you're trying to effectively be that person that's kind of replacing or doing a better job servicing their account. So being able to show them that up front is way different than saying, hey, look, I have the right car in inventory, I have the right price, I have the right person, right? With insurance, it's like it's all on you to show that, hey, I have the appointments, I'm the right person for the job. So that was a big difference for me, and it's a slower process too. With car sales, it's 0 to 0 every month, right? You got sales guys that are trying to get to their number, and then the first hits and they're back to 0, right? And they're starting over. Insurance, it takes a long time to build a book, right? I don't know the number, but I know a lot of guys end up falling out of this business within 3 years because they just can't get a book together, right? And so I think being able to slow myself down, because I'm a pretty hyperactive person, right, is really difficult. But fortunately, I get to do a lot of different things with this agency, so it keeps me busy, which is good. But
Micah, you got anything?
No, so it sounds like your two biggest hurdles right now at the moment are just kind of learning curves have been
Mhm.
the fact of replacing another agent, essentially a replacement sale versus a new sale, and then a
Right.
slower process. Have you found it being more challenging not having a tangible product too? Or is that not really?
That didn't really bother me so much because, I think even with cars, right? Like, you're going to fall in love with a car brand, right? Like a lot of people like Toyotas or Hondas because of the reliability, right? So they kind of anchor on that. It's not so much the car, it's the concept of like, what's this car going to do for me? Or Tesla, like they like the EV, BMW, Mercedes, Porsche, they like the drive of it, or they might all drive the same, but they're aspiring to drive something different, or they earned it, right? So you're always still selling a concept.
Yeah.
Insurance is kind of the same idea. The challenge with insurance is it's kind of twofold for me, really. Like slowing myself down is a personal problem. But when I talk to other people that are producers, it's like that first year is like a straight up wall. It's not a climb, it's a wall, because you have not only are you learning how to do a new job, but you're also trying to gain all this knowledge. So like when I'm on a call with a client and they're talking about cyber, and they ask me a question about cyber, like the amount of times that I would say, I'm not sure, I'll get back to you, you kind of get this imposter syndrome, right? You're like, why am I even selling something that I can't explain start to finish, A to Z, right? And you might have done a great job and got them on the phone and got their policies and done everything that you guys would advise in the producer playbook. But at the same time, it's like, there's that other component of it. So that's been, I think, another challenge too, is like there's that huge knowledge gap that you have to like overcome quickly.
You can't see my paper right now, but I was taking notes as you were talking, and you didn't
Yeah.
mention knowledge, and I had number 3. I was like, knowledge question mark, because I was like, that's typically what I hear, and that's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt too.
Right.
Because you're like, it's hard to be confident selling something when you don't have the knowledge behind you, right?
Totally. And I guess to that point, like, yes, because insurance isn't tangible, it is all knowledge based, right? I guess like when I was training sales guys at dealerships, right? It's like you have a car, you can hide behind the car, right? Or you can, like it's you can put the car in front of it and kind of, not really know much about sales and just have the person fall in love with the car and deal's done. So in this, it is different. So that's a great point.
No one's fallen in love with insurance.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to go back to the imposter syndrome thing eventually, but let's say, okay, so you're 10 months in. Hopefully you don't mind the straightforward questions, but
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, what's your numbers look like? Like, what's your experience been just from a peer like
Um,
results? And if it's 0, that's no shame in that. I mean, I'm
No,
just
no.
curious.
So like I said, I kind of have like a weird hybrid role, right? So when I first started, it was July. And I remember going into the office and like they're like, here's your desk, and it had an old 1990s computer, and I'm like, I'll figure this out. So but my first thing was I need a list of clients, right? Because my goal was to help our energy and marine department grow, and then simultaneously got to build my own book.
Okay.
So the first thing I did was I went online, started looking for like basically aggregators to get names. I forget who I ended up using, but got a list of 10,000 people, businesses, and I started going through each one of them. And we kind of pick out a couple good ones, send out letters, and then send out letters. And then we actually ended up sending out a bunch of books to people, and unresponsive. If I couldn't get them on the phone, we'd send them a book, which was great. Got a couple people off of that. So numbers wise, like for our energy and marine department, we're on track to do by the end of this year, we'll have added, I think, 4 million in premiums for that
Nice.
department. Those are bigger accounts, but like you're still probably looking at 6 to 8 accounts. And if you're in the forum, the max revenue forum, right? I've kind of talked about like I had this point where like I just kind of hit a wall, right? And I couldn't get people on the phone. And then as soon as I complained about it, I had like 3 people called me back the next day and called. I've got a girl that's helping me make phone calls, make calls, and they say, hey, we're interested. We'd like to chat. So I've got some appointments set up for this week, and so it's kind of weird. Like it's this job definitely has highs and lows. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, we're on track for 4 million. And in my personal book, in terms of premiums, I'm probably at, I want to say like 120.
Okay.
So yeah, not where I wanted to be, but
Sure.
anyways, are you ever where you want to be, right?
Yeah, no. I appreciate you sharing that. So I guess, are you trying to grow the marine book like half the time and then your own book, or what's the breakout
Yeah.
of like your?
It depends on the week. So like if we're having a slow, like I guess if it 50-50, right? If we're having like I'll push really hard one week with energy and marine depending on how busy we are, and then I'll like pivot back to commercial, and I got to keep everything going. So like, and I think I had kind of a breakthrough probably 2 weeks ago where I was, you don't, when you, like I said, when you start, you don't really know how am I going to submit this out? What carriers do we have? Who should I talk to? I kind of broke through a wall and I was like, okay, I got this figured out where like, I know how the process works. So now you can put more on my desk and I can handle it. Cause again, I was thinking like, I'm going to submit something and then they're going to get back to me that day. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. Like you could submit Monday through Friday and then wait a week. Right. And then they'll get back to you like a week later on some of this stuff. So I've become way more efficient. We put a CRM system in as well. That's been tremendous. We're doing everything on Excel. So you can imagine, we whittled that list of 10,000 down to 2,000 like high end prospects that we want to go after. And so doing that at Excel, now we're doing it in a CRM system, which is great. Automations, this gets task flagged, all that stuff. So I can help, I have, like I said, I have a girl making phone calls for me while I'm making phone calls too. So we're working in tandem. And it's been way better having tools that actually help you get the job done.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. So are you operating as a marketing person too as well? Like you're actually doing like the submissions and then negotiating with the carriers? How does that part of your
So
role?
we have account managers, and they definitely help 100%. And shout out to Chantel. She works out, with both me and Derek, the engineer I spend time with. But she's so they're just so busy with like, keeping things going there. And I haven't quite narrowed down like what an account manager does yet to be like, hey, here's how I would see this working maybe better. But and not that it needs to be fixed. But we are submitting to carriers. So like I'm the guy putting together the narrative, I get all the docs from the client, and then I go out and submit it to the markets too. So with energy and marine, we really honestly were like, we don't know where to go. So that's why I think we're doing a lot more of it as the account manager. Just so we can as the producer, because we need to know where to go in the future, right? But it works out at the end. I guess I don't know how it works in other agencies, right? You just kind of like learn to do where what they do where you're at, right? So
yeah. Well, it's just important because your time, you're some agents literally their only job is go produce, go set meetings, right? Yours seems a lot more multifaceted, so it's like that's important. If you're comparing yourself to other people, that's one thing to just keep in mind first of all. So okay, so you said you hit a wall. Basically, it sounds like you've hit the wall. I know you had a slight breakthrough, but is it ultimately what it comes down to is just opening up doors, right? I mean, is that your biggest wall you're getting? Is people just saying no or just non-responsive? Is that what you
we're
say?
getting a lot of non-responsive, and like I call it, I think we're in like the sophomore slump, right? It's like you have all this early success, and because you come in and you're so excited, right? You're like, new job, I got to prove that I'm good. I've got to prove that I made the right choice to my wife and kids, right? And then so you're doing all this stuff, and because it's a huge risk, right? So you're really pushing for it. We had like such tremendous. I don't want to call it luck because I think there's such a combination of things in it, but in the first like 6 months of me being in this position, and then like the next 2 months were just like, what did we do? Is it because I changed an email, and then then you really go back and you start like over analyzing what you've done, and then all of a sudden like it all kind of breaks free again. So it's I think the hardest part for us is getting in front of the right people, and especially when you're looking at accounts that are 150 to over $1 million, right? That's what these guys are paying. I mean, the reality is like they don't really have a need to move. And if you're looking at energy and marine, there's oftentimes only one or two carriers that are even willing to play, and there's usually potentially even only one option, right? So unless their broker is doing a horrible job, there's really no need for them to change, right? I mean, what's the point, right? It doesn't do the customer any good, and it's a lot of hassle to go through the process, right? So, I think that's really the hard part. Is like it doesn't take. It can be difficult to talk to the right person and have a better solution.
What is your messaging looking like on like your letters and material that you've had responses from?
Yeah, it's a long letter. It's a really long letter. And then like we'll we put stuff in, and I love writing. Like that's kind of like I enjoy doing it, right? So we put together it's just a single page letter, and we include a photo. So I work with a gentleman, Derek Huddleston. He was an engineer for 15 years on offshore energy rigs, right? So he knows the business like the back of his hand. Like just brilliant guy. And he got into insurance for many of the same reasons that I did. He's got 2 kids, and wanted something different and less hazardous, right? So we kind of really push like his expertise for the energy and marine stuff. We include a couple pictures that we print out from his time on the rig, so they know like this guy's not, we're not messing around here, right? And then we get responses off of that. So, and then a lot of times it's phone calls too. Like we have a flyer we put together, we include that in emails after a phone call. We have a presentation. We do first call with the client as we do a Zoom call, right? It's not a phone call, it's a Zoom call if they're interested in learning more. Bring a presentation. We go through a slideshow, kind of what we do, how we do it, when we do it, what to expect, next steps, all of that. So we've kind of mapped it out for the client. So they're really familiar with like, this is what we're getting into, right? So there's no surprises, because I think the worst part, the hardest part for a client is like when they're going through it and they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that to happen, right? And let alone I didn't know what to expect. So it was like, how do I tell someone what to expect when I don't even know what's going to look like? But we've done really well with like just kind of building out a whole kind of like toolbox per se, right, of things. And our team has access to that through a Notion account, and we just kind of work through it on a daily basis. And then I'm in there making phone calls, just as much as anybody else. And yeah, it's good. Always improving as I hear more back, right?
Sure. No, absolutely. How much? What's the level of outbound activity that would like calling you and your assistant are doing a day? Would you say, or a week?
So Marianne's making 10 calls a day, and I'm probably doing about the same. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but like when you stack it up over a month, it's a solid amount of activity.
Sure. Yep. And then are you sending the letter then calling? Like what's your frequency on that? Or just calling and then sending letters?
Sure.
Kind of.
I've switched to a quarterly letter, because it's challenging to do letters like as you're going through it. I haven't figured out a solution for that yet. I'm looking at a few things, but so we're doing quarterly letters. So like we have our list and we're sending those out quarterly as we learn about like where clients, like when their X dates are, we're putting them into the appropriate quarter, right? So if they're come up in December, we're sending them the letter, in the fourth quarter, early fourth quarter.
Cool. When you're getting people on the phone, I mean, are they basically, I guess, what's your kind of, and like, what is your ultimate goal? Like, what would be like success look like to you in terms of like meeting count per month or, revenue per year? Like, where are you trying to get to?
There's a mentor at our agency, and great guy. He's been doing this for 10 years, and he's kind of taking me under his wing. And I think it's because he was going on vacation, and he gave me this deal, and he's like, here, go figure this out. And it was just a mess of a deal, like lapse policies on a commercial property account. And I'm like, they're closing on a real estate deal. And I'm like, it's just this whole thing. And I'm like, so I unscramble this thing over 2 weeks, and he comes back and he goes, I didn't think you could actually pull that off. Like, and so for me, like my success would be, and so anyways, I told him that like, I want to do $1 million in premiums by myself. And he's like, okay, yeah, great. Good luck. And I understand that now that, we're in May, but success for me would be, taking our agency, it's kind of multi-part, right? Like for me, I would like to get to, my personal book being maybe 5 million premiums, but really like helping the energy department and like helping the overall company just work better. Cause what I found is like, as I put in these little things that help the company be more efficient, there's more time, right? So like you go through this whole thing where you're building, have all these new processes, and then you get to that point where they're working and you're like, I have nothing to do, right? Except for make phone calls again. But you're making more phone calls and you're being more productive. So like, I don't really have an endpoint right now. Like I haven't been it long enough to tell you like, this is what I want it to look like. But I do know that as an agency, like, my goal was like, can we double or triple the agency in 5 years? Like that was maybe kind of more from like a bigger view, like, and then independently, like, where do I fit into that equation? So maybe I haven't figured it out yet. But I think hopefully I'm getting close to the answer, because when you're trying to, figure this out on a daily basis, like where do I want to like focus my time? It gets exhausting. It can.
Absolutely.
Do you guys have do you have a minimum revenue target that y'all are generally looking for when you're qualifying prospects?
We do. So, I had a problem early on where I would just tell people, heck yeah, I can help you. Right. And it's like, then you figure out like, well, there's a reason that they wanted out. Right. And that there was no fight for the BOR. And so what I did learn with like it depends on the account. So like personal, like if I'm doing a commercial lines account, like, you're looking for 10 plus, like is kind of what I would need in premium. For energy and marine, really 150 plus is kind of what you need to be at for it to make sense. And I think that number will probably go up in the future. Just as we kind of learn like what our time is worth and like what we need to be focusing on. It's just, originally you kind of say yes to everything because you need to.
Sure. All right. Well, a couple of things that just kind of pop in my head, and Trey, chime in here. Is one, if you can't do this, that's fine. But okay, you're doing 10 calls a day. Your assistant's doing 10 calls a day. I'm a firm believer. I know Trey does 25, but I still think there is time to do, especially with the CRM, to do 35, 40-ish calls per day, right? Sure. Because that if you have them all in the CRM uploaded, I mean, literally I can get through probably 2 hours realistically, but even if you don't push yourself 3, and that's through. And I've just found that so much good activity comes when you're making calls. I mean, letters are awesome too to supplement. I love the picture idea. I think that's awesome. I might steal something like that myself.
Yeah.
But I think that's super creative. I think one way to implement that is if you're making more calls, when you're never really going to speak to 1 in 10 people, basically is the number that I've come to, 1 in 11 maybe.
Sure.
I love to do a follow-up on those people that say, call me back later, possibly, because that's what you're going to get majority of. You don't have to push for a meeting, but I think then you send that picture of your guy, and kind of then you that's kind of your entry instead of just leading with that, because it might just get tossed. But if you have that little conversation, say, hey, I'm going to send you something in the mail, whatever, and then you send that letter with the picture to all your follow-up laters, and then when that starts to come, all those come back up in 30, 60, 90 days, I think you'll see a huge difference. I've done that personally with my book, where when people call, or I call them to follow up later, I send them the book, not just to everybody, but if they have a halfway decent conversation with me and I think they're being somewhat legit, send them that book and then follow up, right? And then the other thought is on just, I think you need to, you're in San Diego, you're in California. Are you calling just in California? Or are you calling all over the country?
No, we're all over the country.
Yeah. But for yourself, or for the whole Marine, or for what? I guess let's talk yourself first.
Yeah. So generally California for my own stuff here.
Okay.
And I haven't really narrowed down like my niche, right? And that's, I think, another challenge, right? That I have, but I'm getting close to it, right? And then for energy and marine, like we're in Texas and Louisiana, like all the time. Like that's, we've been come out to those states and stuff, and like we're actually going to visit people, like, and clients, because I think it's huge. It's a huge part of it. I think that you miss with Zoom, right? Is like you just don't get to meet these people in your life. But yeah, we're all over the country. So like we'll have a phone call scheduled for 6 o'clock in the morning here because it's 8 o'clock there, right? It's just how it goes. But yeah, and then, and kind of to your point on the math, like I agree, more phone calls need to be made. But there's also only like a certain number of like quality clients that we can call in a year, right? Because it's a very, I think energy marine is kind of a smaller niche. And maybe I'm misguided on that, but it's like, okay, how do we expand out a little bit? Maybe we're too focused and we need to kind of expand. Okay, let's add in like kind of some of the adjacent industries.
Yeah, like energy. I mean, midstream contractors, right, is another one that I've called on before. Oil and gas midstream, the guys doing, hauling of water, whatever, to support that industry. But I think one thing I would say is to, I guess for yourself personally, because if you input all this time into helping the energy and marine department, but your personal book isn't where it needs to be, I don't know what that looks like in 3-4 years, right? I don't know what maybe your agency says, hey, we want to make you an account exec and you're happy with that. That's cool. But if you want to be a producer, have your book, live that lifestyle, of freedom and having that, autonomy. I
Sure.
think just prioritize yourself a little bit more, like on the personal stuff. You're still gonna have time to help with the energy marine. I guarantee it.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I would try to, those 40 calls or 10 calls you're making now, I'm sure not even all those are towards your own prospective clients, right? So, I mean,
No, yeah, exactly.
correct. So it's like, maybe even if you can go to 20 calls and 10 are for your own and 10 are for the Marine, or what I would do is probably 30 your own, 10 for the Marine, right? Because
Fair.
you'll
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
time.
Sure.
The other thing for you, I would up your target size. I know
Okay.
California has pretty good premiums. I think you can go from, because your 10K premium is going to take a lot of accounts to get to where you want to get to. I would go to 50K premium.
Okay.
It might seem crazy, but that's going to generate 5, 6 in revenue. That's your ultimate goal is, I just think if you set the bar at 10, you're going to end up writing too much small stuff. I think if you set the bar at 50, you can still write doesn't mean you have to pass up on a 10, 15, 20K deal. But what starts to happen
Yeah.
is you just focus on bigger stuff, and you're going to naturally just still write the smaller stuff, but not, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Your floor is
absolutely.
just, yeah, your medium point, if it was there, your smaller deals would end up being 25, 30 instead of 2, 3, right?
Yep.
So those are two things that kind of pop in my head off the bat. I know the max revenue, script and how we do that. Trey, I don't know what your thoughts are on some
Yeah,
ideas to help.
yeah, a couple of things. I know this. We're looking at this from a 10,000, foot view, and we don't have all of the details. So if we're stepping on toes, or you guys have a different system or whatever,
Yeah.
it's, no harm, no foul. Do what works for you. I would say that a couple of things. Number one, I agree. Raising the minimum size up considerably. I know that I set mine at 10,000 in revenue, which is 100 in premium.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in a pretty rural state, and I have absolutely zero lack of prospects to go after. That's one of the things that I think you'll notice is the longer you do this, there's way more people out there that have that size than you realize. The second thing I was going to say is $1 million in premium in 1 year, absolutely doable, totally doable. I know everybody in your own agency, it's kind of like, what's that word, like cognitive bias. You only see what's in front of you, but like, I think that's one of the benefits of working at a really large agency when you first start, is you see what's actually possible. And so 100, let's $1 million in premium, let's say you're at 15% in California, because you're mostly standard carriers. That's what, 150 in revenue a year, 100 to 150 in revenue. That's totally doable. I mean, I did that last year, and I'm not that good. I just, when you chase higher people, like higher revenue deals, I mean, think about it. If you're trying to build $1 million book of revenue and you're going after 10,000 in premium, I'm not great at math, but that's a hell of a lot of clients, and that's a lot of servicing. That's
Right.
I would definitely raise that bar. And then the other thing is, I love the sales letter idea. I too really like that angle. I think it's a great addition to a cold call strategy. Put the newsletter up last night about lumpy mail. That may be something worth diving into. So kudos there. The other thing I was going to talk about was like the kind of y'all's sales process. It sounds like you guys get them on the phone, and then it's like, hey, here's who we are. And you're going through, here's our team, here's our guy, here's experience. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I would encourage you to almost kind of flip that on its head. Instead of it being like about y'all, like it's got to be about them. What are the problems that they're having? And that's one of the things with the script, is like going through the due diligence.
Yeah.
And this goes back to Randy Schwantz, who's an OG in this industry, and he wrote this book called The Wedge. It's like, because we're in a commodity-based business, or it's viewed that way, and most insureds don't know what they don't know, we've got to find pain that they don't know that's there. And ultimately, in order for us to get hired, the other agents got to get fired.
Right.
So the only way that you do that, you're going to have a really hard time doing that, saying, here's who we are, here's why we're so great. The better way to do that is, how do you know what you don't know? and then let's peel the onion back together to find out where those holes are. Or are you paying more than you should be? Like, when's the last time you've been given a marketing report? How do you know that your account's being marketed properly every year? It's like you've got to hold their hand and help them unearth the pain to get the other guy fired. And it just at least, and again, from 10,000 square foot, 10,000 foot view, it sounds like it's like, hey, here's who we are and here's why we're great. I think you might have more success where it's like, what are you struggling with? Let's peel that back. Oh, here's a big issue. And then when you go in to present at the end, it's, hey, here's what we found. Here's how we can fix it. It's who we are. And like, that's almost like the last step. It's here's who we are and here's why we can fix X, Y, and Z. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. No, that's, I mean, that's absolutely great feedback.
Yeah. And funny story. I was at Whole Foods yesterday. The lady giving out samples was like, hey, would you like to try meatless sausage? Like, she was saying it all proud. And I was like, no, I don't. I want 100% beef. I was like, what's this beef? What's this made of? She's like, fungi. I was like, no, I don't want that. But she led right away with the features, right? And like assumed that I was at Whole Foods, I'm shopping. Oh, this is, everyone likes meatless meat. You know, I'm like, no, I don't. And I think we can fall into that trap sometimes, what Trey was just saying. And I like to lead my first meeting off like, hey, where are you at today? Where are you trying to get to? What's holding you back? And then getting into maybe some insurance specifics, and then just saying, you know, then saying, hey, we got a process we follow. Let us do some due diligence. We'll come back. And then, like Trey just said, you can close with that. One other thing on imposter syndrome, I think if you want this approach, you'd have a lot less of it, because it's not really about insurance coverage and technical stuff on the first meeting. It's like I said, where are you at today? Where are you trying to get to? What problems are you having? You know, and here's the process we run. Are you open to conversations about that? And if you follow that, our first meeting script and some stuff like that, it's not about knowledge, right? It's about, and then when you get the policies in your door, you don't have to impress anybody. You can ask all your team about all the stuff. When you come back, you can look like a freaking rock star and Albert Einstein of insurance, because you spend time with your marketing folks, the people who know it all. And when you come back and talk about it, you've already prepped for that meeting. So I think that would help. But the other thing is, I think the imposter syndrome might be holding you back from going after, and sorry, I'm talking so fast. I have a 10 o'clock call. So, but we still got 5 minutes. We're going to make the most of them. The imposter syndrome might be holding you back from going after larger accounts as well, I think. But what I've realized is you'll notice this once you get your first $1 million premium account, one account paying $1 million premium, and you're like, holy cow, they didn't even ask about all this technical stuff. It was literally their agent gets their renewals late and they want someone that's more involved. And like, you start to realize like, wait, why am I just creating this image in my mind that these people are something different? I'm putting these people on a platter. The account's paying $1 million or 150, 100. There's a little difference between an account paying 10 and that, but when it gets back to the basics, it comes back to a core couple things, right? And that's what you're trying to solve for. So don't sell yourself short. If you're going to stay in that 10K space, I think you have to weigh up the volume. The people who do that well are like, I'll give a shout out to like Ryan Hanley, right? Go follow him. He's a frequency guy, YouTube, and he writes a ton of that stuff. But it's a volume play, right? And so your 10 call a day model is great actually for what Trey and I are saying. 100 premium plus, right? Then 10 calls a day is fine, right? Maybe possibly I would still do 40. But if you're going to do 10K premium, you got to be like 100 calls, 1,000, 150 calls a day. And I know a shop doing that in Canada. They do a really good job at writing that stuff. They're like, oh, we scoop it up left and right, but they got a system down and they're cold call machines. Like, I'm not even joking. They're like probably 75 to 100 calls a day. And that's all the reps do. So that's a couple things that I wanted to share there. Trey, I don't know if you want to bring it home or.
No. That I'll finish up. I'll wrap up with him. Do you want to? You can go ahead and hop off if you want.
Yeah, I'll hop off. Peter, hey man, awesome talking with you. We'll
you too, man.
talk
Thank
again
you.
anytime. And
thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would say this. So what I deal with is largely transportation. If somebody calls me in and asks about property, I don't even write it. I don't even deal with it. And I just straight up tell them like, listen, I don't know it hardly at all.
Gotcha.
And I think there's nothing wrong with staying in your lane and what you know. You can't know everything about everything. In every state, there's different markets and different nuances, and people have different appetites, and there's so much to know, and there's coverage and exclusions. When you do find your niche, I think that you will find that when you lead with asking them questions and unearthing their pain, I think you'll find that you don't require as much knowledge as you think you do.
Okay.
Right? Because when we lead with the, hey, do you guys ever do any due diligence around your insurance program? And then they're going to say one of two things. Either we already have an agent, or what's due diligence? And to both, you have the same response. I get it. You probably have an agent and you're happy with them. But sometimes people wonder, like, hey, am I leaving money on the table, or maybe there's some coverage that I need to have that I don't have? I can provide you those answers without disrupting your broker relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So automatically from the jump, we have, it's not about us. It's about, hey, what do you not know that you need that you need to know?
Yeah.
And then on that discovery call, we're asking them high-level questions. We're then getting back all of the information we need. We're going behind the scenes. We're making calls to underwriters, finding out where it has and hasn't gone. And then the coverage pieces, you can go, like Micah said, and bring these other guys in to dissect the coverage. And then you can come back and do the dog and pony show at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But unless they initiate the coverage conversation, or unless they initiate asking about who you are and what you do,
Mm-hmm.
I would challenge you to say that it's not really the tip. Like, it shouldn't be the tip of the spear, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think you'll find you don't need as much expertise as you think that you do. We rail on it all the time. Oh, designations and all this stuff, and say, and partly just because it's fun to poke fun, and kind of rattle the cage, but it's like, designations don't sell insurance. Like, if somebody, you can be the best insurance expert, but if somebody doesn't know you exist, then they can't hire you.
Yeah.
And so I totally understand where you're coming from with the imposter syndrome. I had it. I still have it. It never goes away. There's always people out there that know more, but I think you can get around that if you lead more with, like, helping them to unearth the issues that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the times it's not actually a coverage thing. Because if it was a coverage thing and they know about it, it would already be fixed. So, like, that's something you can find out through your due diligence process. And it's not something where you got to be like, oh, well, the property rates are actually X, Y, and Z. And right now we're seeing 2% wind, hail, and whatever it is in your niche. You have time to collect the information and then come back and present at the end, and to be much better prepared instead of just trying to shoot from the hip on that initial call. Does that help at all?
100%, man. It's just, it's like, it's Monday morning. Let's refocus this and get the week going right. So, I mean, there's nothing. It's perfect. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that we can do for you before we end the call?
No, everything's great. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate what you guys have built here. Looking forward to seeing it continue to grow.
Awesome. Well, Peter, I'll tell you this, we talk with a lot of producers, and, you start to pick up on intangibles and energy and all that stuff coming from your background and what you used to do and how cutthroat it was. Like, you are moving and you are shaking and you are going out and making a ruckus, and that is the rate limiting step in this industry. And clearly you have that. So just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to get better. You clearly already, know sales. So go give them hell and keep us posted. I think, I think you're going to do great. So let's stay in touch.
Thanks, brother. Have a great week.
You too, man. Bye-bye.
Bye.